People have had the agua fresca or whatever drink of their choice, and they're all ready to hop back into it. Before we move on, I want to let you know that Truman received a letter from Vice President Kamala Harris, and the Vice President expressed gratitude to all of us for our thoughtful leadership. Here's a QR code if you want to read the letter from the Vice President. And she expressed gratitude to all of us for our thoughtful leadership and commitment to advancing the national interest of the United States. So thank you to your letter, Madam Vice President. Of course, you're welcome, and of course, the pleasure is all ours. This is what we live for. And speaking of people who need little introduction, especially to this audience, next we will be hearing recorded remarks by Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Secretary Pete Buttigieg was one of the very early Truman members. He went on to do a few other things, including serving as an officer of the United States Navy Reserve, serving 2 terms as mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and, of course, serving as secretary. He has helped deliver the world's leading transportation system for the American people and the American economy. We have been working long and hard to bring him to TrueCon for a while now, and we've succeeded finally, at least in virtual form. But please enjoy these following recorded remarks from Secretary Buttigieg.
Greetings, TrueCon. I wish that I could have been there in person, as I often have in years past, but I'm grateful for the chance to share a few thoughts with an organization that I've known since I first turned up in Washington, 22 years old, looking for a community to talk about ideas, policy, and values with. Truman played an important part at a formative time in my life, played a role in informing my worldview, and led to what are still some of my most important friendships. I hope you all are finding something similar. The people to your left and right are remarkable, not just for their experience and skills, but for their values, their leadership in communities inside and outside of Washington, and for a shared ethic of values and ideas over ego. This year, you're marking 20 years of impact, the very kind of impact that Truman's founders hoped for when this organization first took shape. Truman members have saved lives during the Afghanistan evacuation and relocation efforts. Truman members helped to safeguard the Iran nuclear deal when a wave of misinformation was being deployed to try to derail it. In person and at scale, you shape events for the better and help people in the truest spirit of public service. That ethic is needed more than ever because we can all recognize that this is a tough moment in the world, a moment causing anxiety and pain for so many, and challenging communities like this one, communities of people who care deeply about the relationships between what happens here and what happens around the world. People who see the world at once in terms of its complexity and its universal truths. Organizations like this, where trust has been built deeply enough to have hard and candid conversations, are vital to illuminating ways forward through problems that may not be solved in our lifetime but must be managed in our moment, with wisdom, compassion, and courage. In the face of everything happening in the world, even something as large-scale as the reshaping of U.S. infrastructure sometimes feels like just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. But it is a piece of the puzzle that touches many of the things that Truman Project members care about. So I want to give you a short update on some of what we are up to in the Department of Transportation. As always, so many of the global, almost cosmic issues that we discuss in venues like this are connected back to the local, concrete things happening closer to home. I often felt this as a mayor in the industrial Midwest, calling for a kind of foreign policy that would benefit and speak to places like South Bend, Indiana. And I certainly see many things in the scope of this department's work that make clear the importance of the relationship between the immediate and the global. Some of it is on display in our bilateral and multilateral work as an agency. We led efforts in the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, to update global aviation protocols to keep air crews and travelers safe during the pandemic. We hosted the transportation track of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC Summit in Detroit, to advance cleaner forms of transportation on the roads, seas, and airs across Pacific economies. We worked through the G7 to strengthen supply chains, respond to Russia's attacks on Ukrainian transportation, and adapt to attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. We're dealing with a new form of challenge in the form of infrastructure cybersecurity. And there's more going on along these lines. But beyond those examples, I would point to some broader frames showing how America's national security is tied to the strength of our transportation and infrastructure, and what we're doing to make it stronger. First, infrastructure is a foundation for our economy and our efforts to create more fairness in that economy. Through President Biden's infrastructure law, we're making the most sweeping improvements in generations to modernize America's roads and bridges, rail and transit, ports and airports. Over 50,000 projects are already moving forward. From the cathedrals of our infrastructure, projects like the new Gateway tunnels under the Hudson River that might represent the largest transportation public works project in the eastern United States in our lifetimes, to projects like a small airport in Chamberlain, South Dakota, where we're replacing the manufactured home that currently serves as their terminal with a brick and mortar building. Each of these investments is an investment in the durability of American leadership and in the foundation of American competitiveness. Second, the transportation sector is our economy's biggest contributor to climate change. So, those of us who work in transportation must aspire to be furnishing some of the biggest parts of the solution. We are delivering the first federally funded network of electric vehicle chargers across the country and helping more zero-emission buses get on the road. We're making it safer and easier for more people to walk, bike, take the bus or train to where they need to go, and we recognize that good transit or active transportation options will free more Americans from having to bring 2,000 pounds of metal with them everywhere they go. And I'll note for this audience that you will no longer have to go to Europe or Asia or North Africa to ride high-speed rail. Last month, we broke ground on a line between Southern California and Las Vegas that, if it opens by its target date of 2028, will be the first high-speed rail in operation on U.S. soil. And I'm convinced that it won't be the last. Third, President Biden believes, and I do too, that delivering good transportation and infrastructure results is actually key to vindicating the democratic model itself. When people don't see their government deliver, especially deliver on the basics, the credibility of that entire system of government comes into question. It creates a temptation to romanticize authoritarian models. It's happened before, like in the 1930s when people making excuses for Mussolini said that he made the trains run on time, though that's not quite true. I saw for myself, driving on the streets of Kabul as an officer, how the Taliban could take advantage of weaknesses in public services under the Afghan government and compete over basic delivery as a way to win legitimacy. So part of what's at stake in ensuring that we can deliver on the efficient, safe movement of people and goods is to demonstrate that a free and democratic society can better do things than some of the non-democratic forces that we're competing with internationally, or, disturbingly, right here at home. Let me stop there, and I just want to end with another thank you recognizing this extraordinary group. You are among the leading minds and practitioners of a new generation, a generation that has grown up with wars and rising inequality, a worsening climate, and over the course of our lifetimes, especially prior to this administration, far too many examples of policy failure. The fact that you are here now means that you have taken that challenging generational experience and let it energize you with a commitment to public policy and public service. You have insisted on being part of the solution, and we're all better off because you choose to be the women and men in the arena. So please, keep lifting each other up, keep moving us forward, and have a great conference.